Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Productivity in a Crisis, an open Q&A about sustaining employee well-being with Microsoft 365. I'm Teresa Resick, Vice President of Market Intelligence at AIIM, and AIIM is your host and producer of today's discussion. And Microsoft is the underwriter of today's roundtable discussion, and I thank them very much for their support. And certainly thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us today, especially in the snowy Northeast. As we get started, just want to share a couple of tips for participating. By joining our event live, you can resize the windows you have in front of you. I encourage you to open group chat so that you can message with each other and also with us here at AIIM, and that's in the icons across the bottom of your screen. When you open group chat, I encourage you right now just to go in and say hello and let us know where you're listening from. I also invite you to download the resources we have available to you. There's a lot of really cool stuff in there. And later on, we're also going to be launching a survey out, and I would greatly appreciate it if you would complete that and to give us your feedback on how we're doing today. I'm pleased to say that there's going to be no slide presentation today. It's all Q&A, questions, and please submit your questions. Do that using the Q&A feature, and we're just going to keep taking your questions as we go through our whole time today. So now I'd like to introduce Kevin Crane, who is going to be today's host and MC. Kevin is a professional writer, technology analyst, and award-winning podcast producer. He's AIIM's content strategist, and Kevin authors many of our ebooks and infographics that are on a wide variety of intelligent information management and digital transformation topics. He's the producer and host of AIIM On Air podcast, which was just named one of the 10 best business process management podcasts you should listen to. So right now, I'm going to turn things over to Kevin Crane to begin our event today. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Teresa. Thank you so much. It's so great to be back here again with AIIM for another great webinar, Productivity in Crisis, an open Q&A about sustaining employee well-being with Microsoft 365. And it couldn't come at a better time because AIIM just released a new information watch called Maximizing Your Microsoft 365 and SharePoint Investment. It is in the resources section, and it has a number of really important statistics that were uncovered in the research. One of them was that only 1 in 3 organizations were prepared for remote work prior to COVID-19. That's only 1 in 3. I found that to be rather surprising, especially now in retrospect that remote work seems to be so normal today. But only 1 in 3 organizations were prepared for remote work prior to COVID-19. And, you know, there's nothing like a global crisis to really get us moving towards new ways of working, transforming how our workflow works, how our systems work. And indeed, organizations across the world are scrambling to connect their people and their systems and their operations in new ways. And as we know, there have been a number of huge impacts, but most of them to our employees, our people. And think about it. Today, we're always connected. We're more connected than ever before, yet more isolated than ever before. We can access more information than ever before in history, and yet we often struggle to make sense of it or to bring value to that. And this is an especially important time. While maintaining peak performance is really important, not only today, but in the new norm in order to thrive and gain competitive advantage or just simply compete. So it's important to remember it's not just about the technology, it's about the people. It's about how we work together. It's about how we share information. It's about how well we collaborate, how well our teams perform. So your systems and your technology needs to be together, needs to be there, but also your employees and employee well-being. And that's what we're here to explore today among many other things with our experts from Microsoft. We're going to be joined by Rebecca Isaacson, Naomi Moneypenny, and Chris McNulty from Microsoft. And it's great to have these experts here today because Microsoft is a big player in all of this, a big part of the transition. And indeed, Microsoft 365 is the world's leading productivity platform. It has tools that we all know and love, like SharePoint and Outlook and OneDrive and Office, and especially now Teams. But in fact, according to the new Industry Watch, 46% of the organizations that we spoke to use Microsoft 365 and Teams as their primary, and SharePoint as their primary collaboration and knowledge management tool. So that's why it's really important that we have these experts here today to talk about all this. Microsoft is all about the technology, but they're also considering this idea of employee well-being. And in this Q&A, we'll get a chance to explore that. And you can ask them really about anything that you'd like. You can ask them about intelligent information management and content services in Microsoft 365, enabling teamwork and simplifying workflows, harnessing organizational knowledge, getting more done with AI-assisted tools, and really working to future-proof and protect your business moving forward. So with that, let's get into it. I'd like to welcome our guest today. Rebecca Isaacson is a Senior Product Marketing Manager at Microsoft. She's an expert in 365. Where am I today? Let's get these folks right. Also, Naomi Moneypenny. She is the Director of Product Development and an expert in Project Cortex. We'll hear some more about that, I hope. And Chris McNulty, Director of Product Marketing at Microsoft. He's an expert in SharePoint, Project Cortex, content services, all of it. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. If you don't mind, Chris, I'd like to start with you about this idea of employee well-being. Why is Microsoft focusing on employee well-being?
It's a great question, Kevin. So, this has definitely been, by any definition of the word, an astonishing year. And, our CEO, Satya Nadella, said on a call in the first half of the year that the world has seen 2 years of transformation in 2 months. And I think as this year has unfolded, we've seen he may have been understating the case. Certainly the world here at the end of 2020 doesn't look at all the way it did at this time a year ago. And I say that, recognizing that this has not come without pain. We're totally reflective on the fact that the pandemic and all the disruptions that it has caused, have huge negative impact on large parts of our globe. One of the things that we've obviously seen is an acceleration of the trend towards remote work and remote everything. Working from homes for many of us has shifted from being something that happens once in a while to kind of the consistent way that everything happens. And even for folks who were in traditional locations, the fact that so much work has shifted remotely has just really shifted the patterns of work. One of the things that we can see in the aggregate and working with our customers is that the nature of work itself has changed, that the amount of time that people are spending on just on remote work has grown month over month over month, that the amount of time it takes for people to find knowledge that already exists. 4 years ago, we did a survey. That number was 1.7 hours a week. People spend hunting knowledge that already exists. Today, that number is closing in on 6 hours a week for the average worker. So these shifts have a huge impact on employee well-being, and we can see it measured in mental health issues as well. Some of our research scientists look at cognitive function and the cumulative impact of being on a Teams call or other remote work continuously throughout the day without a respite in between. Those processing times that help us distinguish the different parts of our daily life. There's real measurable impacts on that. And we think that at Microsoft, we have a unique opportunity and a responsibility to use our tools in thoughtful ways to help provide people coaching and some of those better practices, as well as some of the investments that we've been making that we'll be talking about here today with areas like Project Cortex, with helping us make information more searchable, more findable. How do we turn and capture content and turn it into knowledge in ways that lets people focus on what they need to do and not have all of that processing time that's available to them in a workday be absorbed with fairly mundane search routines.
Rebecca, what's your take on all of this? How does employee well-being fit in? What's the impact of this to organizational performance, team performance, and how does it fit into Microsoft 365 and where you guys are coming from?
So before joining this team, I was working in the professional services organization in Microsoft. So, the consulting services, project managers, architects, consultants, and, spent quite a lot of time looking at what made them, like, how could we make them do more with less? How could we make them focus on the right things? How could we help them not spend or waste time on searching for things or looking for things and creating things from scratch, but actually finding good stuff that they could build on and provide better value with less effort and better consistency to our customers, right? And the one thing that kept coming back was, to Chris's point, like search isn't satisfactory. Search wasn't, good. So that got me looking into a lot deeper. What is the effect on a person and on a team and on the human brain of context switching? The constant disruptions. Like if I'm sitting here working on something and my phone pings or my email pings or, how does that affect me? How long does it take me to be able to focus again? And that is pretty, the data you get from surveys like that is actually pretty scary. The more conservative ones will say that it takes you about 5 to 7 minutes to be able to refocus after an unpredicted disruption, whereas there's some studies that say it takes you 23 minutes. And I think 5 to 7 minutes is really, really bad, because if I consider how many times my phone pings or I get an email or, a day, there's not a lot of quality work I'm going to be able to do. So
and now with remote work, that's even made worse. The dog is barking, the UPS guy's at the door, maybe my kids are driving me crazy.
Yeah. So I think that's where, having technology that can actually surface information to me that I might not even know that I'm looking for in the context of my work, when and where I need it, as opposed to leaving me just as a subject of, interruption or going to search for things. I think that's a huge step forward. I think that is very, very, very closely connected with well-being, because, at least to myself, constant disruption is one of the most frustrating and stressing things that I'm subject to.
Now, Naomi, is that kind of where Project Cortex is coming into play, presenting information in ways that maybe I didn't even know I needed that information? But how does the technology support this well-being, lowering the stress level, bringing up the efficiency level? I want to understand the connection there.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to talk a little bit more about that. So I think there's a few things there. One is, how do we get a handle on the work that we're doing every day, right? So thinking through, like, if you have a bunch of stuff that's coming into your organization, maybe you're running a business process, or you're part of that team that's running a business process. Maybe you're dealing with a lot of business agreements that are coming in. It could be anything like purchase orders or invoices, or maybe you're dealing with a lot of contracts that are coming in, proposals that may be coming in for different projects, right? Now more than ever, folks need to really think through, like, how do I get the information that I need quickly from that document, that flood of information that keeps interrupting us, as Rebecca was mentioning, and make sure that we have a good handle on that. And the first steps that we're really taking with this in Microsoft 365 is really with SharePoint Syntax, which is part of the overall umbrella of what we do with Project Cortex. And Syntax is really there to help you to understand, like, that information that's coming into your organization, being able to extract essentially the important pieces out of that information so that you can train an AI model and do it simply as an end user, invest the time. It's kind of like building a spreadsheet, I would say. It's that kind of a approach. So if you think through, like, how can I actually extract what I need from those documents that are coming in every day? How do I build a model that I feel trustworthy and confident around operating, and it's simple to do? And then I can train it to extract what I need so that I can use that time to be working on other things, hopefully higher value added activities than just going through, here's a whole bunch of proposals or business agreements where I need to extract information. And then importantly, I can kick off workflows as part of that. And so that understanding, how you can actually extract what you need from documents coming in helps you to reclaim a little bit of time to be able to scale some of the effort that you have as an individual, and then be able to use that to move work along faster, right? Which is really all of the issues that we're dealing with. And then the other part of what we're doing with Project Cortex, so, if you've got a handle of that information coming into your organization, we also want to think through, like, how do we help you to expand that work and think through what's knowledge inside of your organization so that you can build on top of that. And so the piece of Project Cortex that that's almost available is the area around knowledge, and sort of this area of knowledge discovery inside of an organization. So looking through all of the content that you have already as a knowledge worker, as an information worker, as a first line worker, what do I have access to already? Figuring out what are the topics that are in there. So things like project names, campaigns, initiatives, that kind of stuff inside of your organization, helping to take basically the first cut of those inside of your company, and then helping to generate essentially like a wiki-like experience. So generating automatic topic pages and topic cards that help you to surface that up across the company. And the goal of that is to, as you're doing that work every day, right, and you're just collaboration, you're just doing the normal activity that we have to do to keep our businesses running and keep our day jobs going, we want to be able to help to build a knowledge base, essentially, as you're doing that work, and then to at least take the first cut in helping to curate that information for people. And that really leads us to a bigger value proposition around how you think about expertise and you think about knowledge inside of a company. Because it's really, a function of like, who's the business process owner in your organization, who's the subject matter experts that you might reach out to. And those are going to be all very different and relative, right? Relative to the job that you're in, the context that you're in. It's not just like one set of subject matter experts for an entire company. It's really thinking through like, who has relatively more expertise than I do in a particular scenario, or, is Kevin my go-to person, right? When I have an issue about this business process, how do I reach out and find that person? And so we're trying to attack that problem from two sides, essentially, to really help with both your efficiency as a person, but also working as an organizational level to harness what you know already.
A much more strategic and high-level view. All right, well, now we are starting to get some questions coming in from our attendees today. That's fantastic. I do want to get to some of those. First one I'm seeing here is from Sally Hoover, and she is interested in more information on enabling teamwork and simplifying workflows. She says, we have great teams using Microsoft Teams, team meetings. What would help is not only to see the tasks and actions coming out of them with the owners, but an ordered sequence. Anyone care to take on Sally's question there? Chris, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I was going to say I'll take that one on. There's a couple of best practices that we recommend kind of for that team cohesion. It's interesting. One of these came up on a podcast last week that I was on. The quick tip is, if you haven't already done it, creating a channel inside of your team, if you have recurring meetings, and publishing all of your meetings as part of that channel helps collect all of the discussion that happens along the way and the recordings in one place. So if someone is, hypothetically, let's suppose that most of your team is going away for the next 3 weeks, but a couple of meetings will still be happening early next week. That's a place to make sure all that information just stays aggregated so you have the right context. Along with that, many teams are able to make good and effective use of Planner, just for being able to make sure that people are truly looking at the same board of what activities are out there. Planner has nice integrations with tooling like To-Do, so that people can have a personal view of the tasks that they're being assigned to, as well as the aggregate view of all those things across the board.
All right, very good. Martha McNulty is asking, are we talking about clutter or something like it? I'm not familiar with clutter. Do we have Is it
Sure.
it related?
Let me talk to that. It's one of the AI features, right, that we're talking through here. So I lead product development for something called Project Cortex, Martha. And if you haven't heard of that, that's totally fine. I'm sure we have a bunch of links that can help you to learn more about it. But it really is a new set of offerings inside of Microsoft 365. With Clutter, that's a function that's inside of your Outlook inbox. And so it's a thing that helps you be focused with your mail. So we used to have things as focused mail and then unfocused mail. So sort of whether you're to or recipient around that mail, and then it learns a little bit more about you as well. And so when you think about some of the evolution of the AI technologies that we have inside of Microsoft 365, you can see things like Clutter were one of the first ones that we actually put out there of trying to help you to garner up your information flow, right? All of that stuff that's coming in. But we actually want to take that to a whole new level with what we're doing with Project Cortex. So this is really about looking across everything that you do in Microsoft 365 and making you individually more productive, but hopefully your team more productive. And then as an organization, really looking at the knowledge that you have across the company and how you get to tap into that on a daily basis.
It's really a new age, isn't it? A lot of new possibilities, and with a new renewed focus on these higher level sort of things to consider. It really sounds like we have a lot of great opportunity right at our doorstep today.
Yeah, Kevin, I mean, one other point I would just reflect back there is earlier this year, we showed a vision of some of the ways that we can deliver those nudges and coachings to people in the flow of their work. And if you've seen any of the sessions at Ignite in keynotes around virtual commute, that's very much a piece of that. The idea of being able to kind of look left to right across someone's work stream and to remind them at the end of the day, it's important whether you're in the office, you should leave. If you are in your virtual office, you should disconnect to kind of review all of the activities that are out there based on chat or emails that you've received. It gives you an opportunity to say, what did I finish? Which things do I want to carry over into the next day? And it will add those as tasks to your to-do items and provide a chance for you to kind of score how you did in the day with an opportunity to actually take that. I'm using some integrations with Headspace. If you want to take 5 to 10 minutes for mindfulness, it's very important for cognitive functioning to have some of that processing time. If you think about it, this is going to be a little bit unfair to some of our colleagues and customers on the West Coast further south, but it has been observed and proven that Californians have a little bit harder time mapping long-term personal history because the seasons blend together and you're not getting those environmental cues that, it was cold then or warm then, because everything tends to blend together. We're seeing that in the workday too, that if, realistically, I'm doing this call adjacent to my kitchen. My partner's son, Brendan, is making lunch over there. So definitely you have this blending of personal and work, and it's really important for us to be able to keep them distinguished in the same way as that if you were leaving in your social life. When you're leaving a real world live party or social event, you have half an hour to sort of process it, talk to the people you went with, kind of get that into long-term filing. The same thing is really important in the workday, and it's important to preserve for employee well-being, not just your effectiveness, but your personal time, because ultimately, achievement is not just measured in workforce outcome, but also in quality of life, happiness in those measures. And those are definitely places where we're trying to use AI and our responsible position in this market, I think, to help people do more.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We are with Chris McNulty, Naomi Moneypenny, and Rebecca Isaacson from Microsoft. We're talking about a variety of things, employee well-being and Microsoft 365 and some of the things that are happening that connect people, technology, and process in new and more profitable, more effective ways. We are getting to all of your questions as best we can today. Next question I have is from Edward. He says here, we have the advantage that we are just now deploying Microsoft 365 and SharePoint and Teams for the first time. We are currently planning and exploring information architecture concerns, but your point about employees is well taken. What kind of policy and procedure should we consider regarding the human side of our change management plans and the ongoing use of this system? Really great question. I hear from AIM members and practitioners that managing change is often a more challenging proposition than even the most complicated technological implementations. Chris, Naomi, Rebecca, I'll let any of you jump in. What's your take on this question from Edward?
Why don't I start off, since I've spent a fair chunk of my career working in change management and adoption and change management. I think it's a really good point. I think it's super relevant. I think it is key to understand that the types of solutions we're talking about are not, or rather I should say, implementing and getting the most value out of the solutions we're talking about right now is not a technology problem. It's not a solution implementation, full stop. It really involves thinking through what is the company culture that we have, what is the company culture that we want, and, what are the business problems that we're trying to solve through this technology? Because knowledge management, how we leverage knowledge, how we leverage insights is all about what do we want the organization to be, and how do we want to change the organization? Because changing an organization takes changing individual people's behavior. So we need to assess, do we have an organization where people are collaborative? Are they collaborating? Are they okay sharing information, sharing their work? Are they enjoying building on each other's work and each other's ideas, right? Versus, do we as an organization encourage that? Do we allow that? Or do we have a very strict hierarchical culture where we want everything to be reviewed and approved before it's shared wider, et cetera?
Right.
Those are some of the things that we need to think through. And one doesn't have to be wrong or better than the other, but
we do see that
most companies are moving towards a more flat, more collaborative, let people innovate, let people collaborate, let people take initiative. It's going to be better for the organization in the long run. But there are also certain industries and areas where that might not be ideal at all times, but, still. Respectful
well, it's okay. The people are what drive performance. So as a leader, employee well-being is process well-being, is organizational well-being, in my view. We have some questions coming in about some of the technology. I want to ask, when it comes to employee well-being, what are some of the Microsoft 365 offerings that help organizations and leaders support and promote employee well-being, and how does each one help? Chris, do you have something that you could help us with on that?
Yeah, and Kevin, I think we certainly, touched on some of those core capabilities. Certainly the investments that we're making with Cortex are really improved at helping people scale their expertise by being able to teach the cloud to read and process documents the way that I do or you do, and then allow Cloud Scale to pick that up so I can focus my time on higher value endeavors. Cortex, and I'd say closely aligned with our investments in Microsoft Search and in our graph connectors, are also focused on helping people have knowledge find them. We were talking earlier about, spending 6 hours a week looking for information that already exists, that's not a great use of anyone's time. It isn't productive. It's frustrating. It leads to abandonment frequently. And so the more that we do to make search not a tool, but if you think about it, knowledge just finds you through the course of your work. And having that be something that just comes automatically into Microsoft 365, I'd say is definitely a key piece of that. Finally, definitely look to, when we talk about workplace analytics and my analytics, there are a lot of investments we're making in that space to help individuals, teams, and organizations have the tools they need to assess that employee well-being on a daily basis. And it can be coaching, as we mentioned before, about it may be time to take a break. It may be providing metrics to remind people that if you're in management, like you may not have had a one-on-one interaction with people on your team, certain people on your team in the past few days, and coaching to go set those meetings up. Or holistically, looking at how people are responding and working, are work hours growing, shifting, are people reporting more cohesion or less, and leveraging the signals that we have inside of places like the Microsoft Graph, workplace analytics, my analytics, and some of those related capabilities definitely are some of the key tools where we're focusing on employee well-being.
Naomi, I have a question coming in from Peter that I think perhaps you might be able to handle for us. Peter says, I understand the value of using AI to gain insights in the knowledge we have and are using, connecting all Microsoft solutions we're using. The reality is, however, that a whole lot of, let me see if I can get this right, a whole lot of interesting content and knowledge is to be found in non-Microsoft technology. I'm thinking specifically of document and record management solutions from other vendors and so forth. Question is, are there any connectors for Cortex or Syntax to such applications being developed actively, or should I expect that to be on a longer term?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Thanks so much, Peter, and thanks, Kevin, for reading it out. So yeah, it's a good one to talk through. So we obviously recognize, right? We know you have a ton of content and lots of collaboration going on inside of Microsoft 365, but there is an entire world of stuff out there, right? And we want you to be able to connect in and think through knowledge for your organization more generally. So there's two things that we can do here. One is we're building on the work that is happening already for something called Microsoft Search, where we have this idea of Microsoft Graph connectors. And those are connectors that go out to hundreds of other systems, and they are already available. And so they actually help to bring in search results from other systems, things like everything from Salesforce to, maybe you've got some SQL databases or other things where you're bringing in information. And so you can actually use those graph connectors to bring in information into your search experiences. And that just helps with just your regular just searching, every day as you search in Outlook and SharePoint and Teams and all of that goodness. So that really helps you there. And when we use that same search index, so when that graph connected information comes in, we use that same search index to actually power some of the knowledge experiences that we have with Cortex. And so if you want to bring in other systems, whether that's using connectors that Microsoft supplies, we also have a whole bunch of partners who are out there too. So Accenture, BA, Insight, and Raytheon all already have a bunch of connectors too for every kind of third-party system you can think of. And we can use that content effectively to funnel into the knowledge discovery that's happening inside of the organization. So that's the way to think about that more holistically. You should think about it from a search perspective, right? It's not just about knowledge discovery, but you want to bring it into search generally as well. And then once you do have it there for search, then we're able to use all of that rich goodness to power the knowledge discovery that we have inside of Project Cortex.
Connectors for Documentum included?
Yeah, so there's actually a whole wide range of connectors. I can find a link for you there. So yes, there's, like I said, our partners and some of the capabilities that we already have in-house have that too. Yeah.
Rebecca, maybe you can help us with this question from Carrie.
.ms.
Oh,
sorry. Just wanted to say, if you go to
Chris? Go ahead, Chris.
The full catalog of 130 sources, whether they're file shares, Azure Data Lake, Documentum, S3, SAP, Salesforce. There's tons of places that you can integrate in with the graph.
All right, very good. Now, Rebecca, perhaps you can help us with this question from Carrie coming in. Carrie says, we're excited about Azure Purview, and I wonder what the equivalent functionality is with Microsoft 365 for data governance, privacy, security.
Azure Purview. I'm going to throw that one over to Chris or Naomi.
Okay.
I'm the knowledge management person. I am not the technology person. I'm sorry, Chris. I know you're disappointed now.
All right.
Oh, that's fine.
I'm not going to get a Christmas present from Chris. There we go.
Well, what about Azure Purview?
So Azure Purview is a really interesting initiative that's based on some of the fundamental work that the Azure team has been doing with data cataloging and being able to build a map of structured information that lives inside Azure and in adjacent clouds. So if you think about things that may live in SQL or SAP, but these are, for the most part, these are structured environments. And so Purview allows you to create a high-level map of where that all information is, looking for some keywords that are inside of that. But most importantly, the key thing that Purview is bringing is letting you take advantage of the information labeling, the policies for security and retention that are driven by MIP, Microsoft Information Protection, lets you automate the application of labels to structured data that lives in those structured repositories. Syntax, conversely, is very much doing that for unstructured information that lives in the cloud and looking to expand into other sources that are out there. So the two are very distinct right now. We definitely see a future where there's definitely some really interesting integrations to build, but right now you can think of Purview as doing for structured databases many of the same things that Cortex and Syntax are doing for your Microsoft 365 cloud data.
All right. I know we're coming close to the end of our session today. I want to point out to our audience today, if you'd like to get a question in before our time is up, please do so now. I want to follow up. Carrie says, whenever I point out Delve to my coworkers, because no one really uses it, they freak out and disable it. I don't know quite what she means by that, but Chris, what do you have to say about Delve? What's with that?
Well, Delve is a fascinating product because in many ways, Delve is the reason why we built the Microsoft Graph in the first place. And so for people who don't know it, Delve is a place where you can look and sort of serendipitously discover in a people-centric way what other people are doing, working on, seeing if someone has posted or shared a file. And it's based on security. So if I work on a file with Rebecca that Naomi can't see, she doesn't get to see that information. But Delve is also based on the idea of the graph. So continuously building that matrix of mapped relationships amongst people, content, practices, what files are used in what meetings, who goes to those, how do they communicate those. That gives us great ability to let you deliver personalized search results, for example, to your workers. The thing that Delve did two very good things in the long run. First, it allowed people to understand that their information security might need to be looked at. A lot of people migrated information into the cloud, attached no security to it. Security by obscurity isn't a recipe for success. So it helped organizations understand that and kind of improve their own security practices. And from a Microsoft perspective, it really forced us to build out the graph. Do people want that serendipitous water cooler discovery what other people are working on? I think the jury's been out on that one. But by being able to work on, have the graph as the basis for us to build, second and third generation solutions like Microsoft Search, like Cortex. We've been really thoughtful about the kinds of signals that we use to generate knowledge. There's a distinction between what I'd say public and private signaling that we use with Cortex. And I can ask Naomi to expand on that a little bit, but basically when we're looking at signals to generate, to suggest that you may be an expert on a given topic. That's not based on doing something passive like just reading a web page, but usually on your publishing, sharing, running a meeting. Those are the much more impactful signals that are the nucleus of what we're doing with Cortex. Naomi, can you kind of expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. Happy to, Chris. Yeah, it really is about that understanding the collaborative signals that you have every day. And that's what comprises what we call about the Microsoft Graph. And so as Chris mentioned, that really is about understanding whether here's the documents you're updating, what you're saving, who you're working with, etc. Whether you're going to a meeting, whether you attended into that meeting, and then whether you're actually using the follow-ups either from those meetings as well as the files and other signals that are richly inside of the Microsoft Graph. And that's the wonderful thing here is the ability to help personalize the experiences that you're getting, whether that's search, from understanding who you're working with and what you're working on, so we can actually deliver you a better search experience because of that, and then taking it one step further, which is really what Project Cortex is doing, and essentially indexing for knowledge inside of an organization. So we have the richness of all the data that's being connected into the Microsoft Graph, all the files and the content that you're working with every day, then all of those signals and that collaboration that's going on, and then being able to bring in all of those connector from other places so that you're connecting in other systems in there too, and then taking it, that next level for knowledge. And so we can take that first cut essentially to help identify here's the projects, the topics, the campaigns, initiatives, etc. that's going on inside of your organization, generate a list of those potential topics, and then folks can actually go through and look at that from a knowledge management perspective, be able to use that information to figure out, here's the way that we could structure some topics and how we help to gather up the information inside of our organization in a way that makes it easy for everybody to consume and to keep it up to date.
Well, I got to say, I love what I'm hearing today. These are all tools that, as a leader, as a team leader, as a business owner, an executive, these are all tools that can enable a much higher level, higher acumen of how I approach my people, my technology, my information, my workflow, my organizational performance. And it's just fantastic to hear just a little bit of the surface of what is possible. I really want to thank our guests today, Rebecca Isaacson from Microsoft, Naomi Moneypenny, and Chris McNulty also from Microsoft. These are experts in Microsoft 365, SharePoint, Cortex, all of these tools. So it is great to have them here today. I will be asking Chris for some closing comments here in a moment. But before we do, I just want to take a moment to take the next step. What does AIIM recommend that we do today? Certainly turn to AIIM as a resource for research and learning. There is a ton of resources in this very resources section here today that I'd like to encourage you to take a look at, download now, and certainly at the AIIM website at AIIM.org. A ton of resources, a ton of learning, a ton of training, a ton of practical information that really, I think, is unparalleled in our industry. And then support people like Microsoft. Talk with the suppliers and service providers like Microsoft that are leading the way, and really lean on their expertise and their systems to help you move forward in ways that make a difference for you. What can we do today? I'd say pick one thing we discussed today and bring that back into your organization and look at ways you can improve the performance of your processes and your people with one thing that we talked about today. And intelligent information management, it begins with us. So the actions that we take are really the most meaningful that we can take away from today. Now, Chris, thank you for bringing you and your team here, everybody here from Microsoft for us today. What are your closing thoughts for us as we bring this session to a close?
So a couple of things. One of the things that's fundamental to how we think about employee well-being is making sure that content is out there and well-structured. We were really happy with to see how Microsoft was regarded by Gartner in this year's Content Services Platform Magic Quadrant. This is the fourth year that we've been recognized as a leader in the quadrant, and it definitely means something to be considered relevant to many of our counterparts in this industry who we know also have great and impactful solutions. So you can get a free copy of that report through the link that's available here on screen at aka.ms/Gartner-CSP20. And also, we have a ton of resources that are available to in addition to AIM, which, by the way, we've been a really proud member and supporter of everything that AIM does. And we'd encourage you to take advantage of some of the resourcing that Kevin shared. But these are some places where you can learn more about what we're doing with Cortex, with employee well-being, what the investments that we're making with Syntax. So the nucleus for all of these things is aka.ms/Project Cortex. So if there's one URL you remember, that is the one that I would look at. It's really great to be able to come here at the end of the year with you. We definitely are looking forward to next year being epic, to being awesome, and dare I say, Kevin, intergalactic.
Yes, off the charts, out of this world, man. Yeah, no, it's going to be a great year, and I am looking forward to 2021. I want to talk more about Project Cortex and a bunch of stuff that's happening that's going to be coming around the corner. Thank you, Chris, and thank you also, Rebecca and Naomi, for being with us today. It's certainly been a valuable conversation, and I really appreciate your time today. Yes, AIM 21 is coming up. Look, we are really excited to announce that planning for AIM 21 is well underway. It's going to be virtual. It's going to be online. It's going to be different. It's going to be different than anything you've seen from AIM. It is our galactic digital experience, April 27th through 29th of next year, 2021. The AIM 21 digital experience has 3 access levels: a starter pass, an all access pass, and a VIP pass. So you have different ways to engage. They're all great. You'll get to sharpen your skills in actionable takeaways. I was looking at some of the agenda today. We've got sessions like this, these Q&A Ask Me Anythings. We've got how-to top tips that I think are going to be very practical. We've got project success stories, professional skills sessions. And I saw something on the website about a virtual swag bag. I don't know what that is, but you'll have to check that out. It's all at AIMconference.com. That's AIIM, AIMconference.com. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for your time today. Just a few last reminders. Download the resources. There's some really cool stuff in there. And take our feedback survey. It really helps us understand what works, what doesn't, and how we can bring more value to you. And we want to thank our underwriter for today, Microsoft. Without supporters like Microsoft, we couldn't bring you these valuable and informative webinars. So we hope that you've enjoyed this one. Thank you, everyone, for Teresa Rezick and the rest of the team at AIM. I'm Kevin Crane. See you next time.